Welcome to our channel. Today, we pause to remember a life that touched hearts and left a lasting impact. We'll explore their journey, the challenges they faced, and the moments that made them unforgettable. Join us as we honor their story, celebrate their legacy, and reflect on the memories that will continue to inspire and live on in the hearts of those who knew them. The news arrived quietly, as many important moments in Lee H. Hamilton's life often did. On February 3, 2026, the longtime public servant passed away at the age of 94. There were no flashing headlines at first. Just a steady acknowledgement that a calm and guiding presence in American public life was gone. For more than 3 decades, Lee Hamilton served the United States not by raising his voice, but by listening carefully. He represented Indiana's 9th Congressional District from 1965 to 1999, during years of deep political change. While others sought attention, Hamilton focused on balance, process, and trust. His work reflected a belief that democracy worked best when handled with patience and care. Born in Indiana in 1931, Hamilton came from modest roots. He studied law, but quickly found his calling in public service. Early in his career, colleagues noticed his ability to work across party lines. He believed disagreement did not have to lead to division. That belief shaped his entire approach to leadership. During his time in Congress, Hamilton became known as an expert on foreign affairs and national security. He chaired key committees and helped oversee some of the most sensitive issues facing the country. Even in tense moments, his tone remained calm. He asked questions others avoided and insisted on clear answers. After leaving Congress, his work did not slow down. In some ways, it became even more important. Hamilton was asked to serve on several national commissions, including as vice chair of the 9/11 Commission. The country was grieving, afraid, and searching for truth. Hamilton helped guide that process with steady judgment. A former colleague later reflected, Lee brought dignity into rooms filled with fear. He reminded us that facts mattered, and so did fairness. That sense of balance earned him respect from both Democrats and Republicans. In an era of growing polarization, he remained a trusted voice. Hamilton also served on the U.S. Homeland Security Advisory Council, where he continued to stress oversight and accountability. He believed strong institutions were essential to a free society. Power, in his view, always required responsibility. Outside government, he taught and wrote about democracy. He spoke to students not as an authority above them, but as someone inviting them into the work of citizenship. Democracy, he once said, is not a machine. It's a conversation. That simple idea stayed with many who heard him speak. News of his passing brought quiet tributes from across the country. One former staff member shared online, "He never made you feel small. He made you feel trusted." Another public figure wrote, "Lee Hamilton showed us that integrity does not need applause." Those closest to him remembered a man devoted not only to public service, but to family and community. He valued humility. He avoided drama. His leadership style reflected his personality, measured, thoughtful, and deeply human. In recent years, Hamilton watched from a distance as politics grew louder and more divided. Yet his legacy stood as a reminder of another way. A way rooted in listening. In restraint. In respect for institutions and for people. Lee H. Hamilton may not be remembered for fiery speeches or bold slogans. He will be remembered for something quieter, and perhaps more lasting. He helped hold the structure together during moments when it felt like it might break. As the nation reflects on his life, his impact remains clear. He showed that democracy needs caretakers as much as champions. And in that role, he served with uncommon grace. His voice has now fallen silent. but the principles he stood for continue to speak, softly, steadily, and with enduring strength. The news was confirmed quietly, as many learned of Ron Kenoly's passing through gentle messages and shared memories online. For a man whose music filled churches with sound, his departure arrived in silence. He passed away surrounded by family, leaving behind a legacy built not on fame, but on faith and unity. Ron Kenoly was more than a singer. He was a voice that invited people to stand, lift their hands, and sing together. For decades, his worship songs crossed borders and cultures, reaching churches large and small. His music asked for no spotlight. It asked only for open hearts. Born in the United States, Kenoly discovered music early in life. Gospel sounds shaped his childhood, but his vision reached beyond one style or one audience. He believed worship should be joyful, shared, and welcoming. That belief guided every stage he stepped onto. In the 1990s, his music found a global audience. Albums recorded live in church settings became widely known, especially in Africa, Europe, and Asia. Songs like Lift Him Up and Ancient of Days became more than performances. They became moments of collective praise. What set Ron Kenoly apart was not just his voice, but his spirit. He encouraged participation, not perfection. Congregations did not listen to his songs. They joined them. His concerts often felt less like shows and more like shared experiences. A longtime worship leader once wrote, "Ron didn't lead from above. He stood among the people." That approach made his music feel personal, even to those hearing it for the first time. His joy was steady, never forced. Behind the music was a man deeply committed to faith and family. Those close to him described him as humble and grounded. He avoided the spotlight when possible and gave credit freely to others. For him, worship was always about something greater than himself. As news of his death spread, tributes appeared across social media. One fan shared, "His songs carried me through some of my hardest days." Another wrote, "Ron Kenoly taught us that praise could be powerful and gentle at the same time." Church leaders also reflected on his influence. A pastor noted, "He changed how the world worshiped together." His music made room for everyone. That sense of inclusion became one of his strongest legacies. In later years, Kenoly stepped back from large stages, but his music never faded. His songs continued to be sung in churches every week. New generations learned them without always knowing the voice behind them. That quiet endurance spoke to the strength of his work. He never chased trends. Instead, he stayed rooted in simple messages of hope, faith, and gratitude. His music reminded listeners that worship could be joyful without being loud, and powerful without being overwhelming. Ron Kenoly's passing marks the end of a chapter in modern gospel music. Yet his influence remains alive in every shared chorus and every lifted voice. His songs continue to gather people together, just as he always intended. As the final notes fade, what remains is a feeling many still recognize. A sense of peace. A sense of belonging. Ron Kenoly will be remembered not only for the music he made, but for the way he helped people worship together. His voice may be silent now, but his songs still rise, wherever hearts gather in praise. The news was confirmed in quiet literary circles first. Allan Massie had passed away, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than words. For a writer whose life was shaped by reflection and restraint, his departure arrived without noise, marked instead by thoughtful remembrance. Allan Massie was known for treating history not as something distant, but as something lived. Through novels, essays, and journalism, he asked readers to look again at power, identity, and human weakness. His work did not offer easy answers. It offered careful questions. Born in Scotland, Massie grew up surrounded by stories of the past. These early influences shaped his lifelong interest in history and national identity. He believed that the past was never truly gone. It lived quietly within modern choices and beliefs. Massie began his career in journalism, where his writing style quickly stood out. His sentences were clear, measured, and thoughtful. He avoided extremes and preferred balance. Readers trusted his voice because it never rushed to judgment. Alongside journalism, he built a strong reputation as a novelist. His historical fiction brought famous figures down from monuments and placed them back among human doubts. Kings, generals, and leaders were shown not as symbols, but as people shaped by fear, pride, and responsibility. A fellow writer once said, "Allan wrote history with compassion, not certainty." That approach became his signature. He believed understanding mattered more than opinion. His work encouraged patience in a world growing impatient. As years passed, Massie became an important cultural commentator. His essays explored politics, culture, and identity with quiet honesty. He did not chase trends or provoke outrage. Instead, he trusted readers to think for themselves. Those who knew him personally described him as gentle and reserved. He preferred books to attention and conversation to debate. A former editor shared, he listened carefully before he wrote. That made his words matter. When news of his passing spread, tributes followed from readers and colleagues alike. One reader wrote online, "His writing taught me to sit with doubt, not fear it." Another shared, "Allan Massie showed that reflection is a form of courage." In later years, his work continued to be read and discussed, especially by those interested in history and identity. Younger writers often discovered him slowly, through essays passed along or novels found by chance. His influence grew quietly, just as he would have wanted. Massie never claimed to have final answers. He believed that uncertainty was part of being human. Through his writing, he gave readers permission to question their own assumptions and to see history as something alive and unfinished. His passing marks the end of a thoughtful voice in public life. Yet his work remains, steady and patient, waiting for new readers. His words continue to remind us that understanding takes time, and meaning is rarely simple. Allan Massie will be remembered as a writer who respected complexity. A man who believed reflection mattered. And through the pages he left behind, his voice continues to speak, quietly, clearly, and with lasting grace. The news was confirmed quietly within theater circles, shared first by those who had stood beside him under stage lights and behind heavy curtains. Woodie King Jr. had passed away, leaving a space that felt deeply personal to many. For someone who spent his life giving others a voice, the silence felt especially heavy. Woodie King Jr. was not only a director or producer. He was a builder. He built stages where none had existed before. He built opportunities for artists who had been overlooked for far too long. And he built belief that stories from African American communities belonged at the center of American theater. Born with a deep love for performance, King found his calling early. He understood that theater was more than entertainment. It was identity. It was history. It was a mirror held up to society. From the beginning, he knew that many voices were missing from that mirror. As an actor, he learned the power of presence. As a director, he learned the power of choice. But it was as a producer and founder that his influence grew strongest. He helped create spaces where Black playwrights, actors, and directors could tell their stories with honesty and dignity. King was a driving force behind institutions that changed the theater world. These were not just venues. They were safe places for truth. places where difficult stories could be told without apology. His work helped redefine what American theater could look like. A longtime collaborator once said, "Woody didn't open doors halfway. He opened them wide." That generosity became part of his reputation. He believed talent deserved opportunity, not permission. Throughout his career, King faced resistance. Funding was often limited. Support was not always guaranteed. But he remained steady. He understood that lasting change rarely comes easily. It comes through persistence and faith in purpose. Those who worked with him remember his calm authority. He led without shouting. He guided without controlling. An actor who performed under his direction shared, "He made you feel seen." That alone changed how you performed. When news of his passing spread, tributes poured in from across the arts community. One theater leader wrote, "Woodie King Jr. reshaped our stages and our standards." Another posted, "Because of him, many of us found our first chance, and our voice." In later years, his influence could be felt even when his name was not spoken. Productions featuring diverse casts and stories stood as quiet proof of his work. Representation became less of a question and more of an expectation. That shift was part of his legacy. Woodie King Jr. believed theater should reflect the full human experience. He fought for stories that carried pain, joy, struggle, and hope. He understood that when people see themselves on stage, something powerful happens. His passing marks the loss of a cultural architect. But what he built remains strong. Every time an unheard voice takes the stage, his work continues. Woodie King Jr. will be remembered not only for the stages he built, but for the lives he lifted. His legacy lives on in every spotlight that now shines a little wider, and in every story that finally gets to be told.